Dead by Daylight is a rather interesting game when you think about it, because in concept the premise of the gameplay sounds relatively simple. Survivors repair generators and open the exit gates to escape. Meanwhile, the killer chases after the survivors and puts them on a hook to sacrifice them to the almighty entity. It sounds so simple, and yet, when you pause to think about it, it is within that simplicity that we see the hidden complexity. Although generators are the main objective for survivors, they also utilize their health and hook states as resources to protect teammates and themselves. They utilize the state of the game to decide certain actions, and they dedicate certain perks to resolve pain points or to promote particular playstyles. The killer follows with this logic as well, as they need to watch hook states, know what perks are on the field, remember what resources remain for survivors, and most importantly, how to best utilize their power. One of the largest differences that exists between survivors and killers, with the exception to the player count per trial, is the fact that killers have unique powers. There are now 43 killers as I am recording this, with number 44 most likely going to release once I upload this video.
Here exists nothing but degeneracy.
And each and every single one of them are very different from the last. I will admit that some killers have certain similarities to others, but one thing that we can agree on is the fact that each killer plays Dead by Daylight differently. As a result, this can be seen as quite a puzzle for new players, as each killer is designed to handle certain elements of the game with more finesse compared to other options. Some are better at chase, others better at macro play, others better at build diversity, others at teaching new players, and that list goes on and on. Another issue that arises is the fact that guide videos for Dead by Daylight tend to be really difficult to make. This once again is due to the hidden complexity of the game, as there is no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to making decisions. You could make the most tactical decision that the highest of MMR player would make, but it could easily fall apart if one thing in the situation changes. As such, you might be wondering why on earth I am making a guide video in the blessed year of 2026. After all, didn't I say that they were tricky to make? The answer to that is very simple. Because I love punishing myself with difficult tasks and suffering because of it. Joking aside though, guides are a very powerful tool for new players, as not only do they help teach how a certain character works, but they also include advanced details that can be utilized in a variety of situations. Although they do not provide a full solution on how to play as a character, they do a fantastic job at introducing the best parts of the killer to the player, and it is that element that I wish to expand upon for this video. I will admit that I have been wanting to make a guide video for a very long time, and considering I decided to make 3 separate projects for Houndmaster, I felt like this was the perfect time to capitalize on that idea. Similar to Dead by Daylight, Houndmaster has a kit that looks extremely simple on paper, but as you begin to dive deeper into understanding how she functions, you begin to realize just how complex she can be. I already explored her lore, visuals, and other details in my previous video, so if you wish to learn about Houndmaster's design outside of gameplay, I would recommend checking it out. To best show off Houndmaster's complexity gameplay-wise though, we will be looking at her base power and how it functions, along with exploring some advanced tactics that you can utilize in certain scenarios. Additionally, throughout this video, you will be seeing a variety of different clips of my gameplay to best show off the details that I discuss, along with showing off the variety of gameplay styles that she can perform. With all of that out of the way, let's set sail, as a certain pirate often likes to say, and explore the Houndmaster's power. To start, I believe going over some basic information about Houndmaster would be wise. After all, we can't talk about a character if we don't know what their game plan is. Houndmaster is a basic attack focused killer, who has 115% move speed and an average tear radius size of 32 meters. Her power, Scent of Blood, revolves around a sweet little gentleman named Snug, allowing her to swap between one of 2 commands to send the dog out to perform certain actions. The first command is called the Chase command, and it is as simple as the name implies. When in the chase command, Houndmaster is capable of commanding Snug to pounce in a straightforward direction. During this action, Snug is capable of vaulting over drop pallets and windows at incredible speed, and upon connecting onto a survivor, he will latch onto them. Survivors who are grabbed by Snug are unable to run. They gain a 10% hinder and the incapacitated status effect, and during this time, Snug highlights their aura and pulls them towards Houndmaster's current location. In essence, this sounds very similar to Deathslinger's power, the Redeemer, so you might suspect that you use the chase command in a similar fashion. Tragically, this is not the case, because unlike the Redeemer, there are a plethora of ways that survivors can disrupt Snug's chase command. Outside of simply dodging the first dash, survivors who are grabbed by Snug can remove him by having a teammate shoo him away, dropping from an elevated location, or the most common approach, pallet stunning Snug. Survivors who are grabbed by Snug have pallets revealed to them within 16 meters of their location, allowing them to know where to go to stun Snug. Additionally, Snug does not constantly pull survivors. Instead, he will pull them a maximum of 3 times within 8 seconds, meaning they can still move, even though they are slowed. As a result, Snug as a purely lockdown power is not all that great, but where it struggles in strength, it makes up for it with flexibility. Looking deeper into the chase command, you also have the ability to swap your point of view onto Snug while he is busy running, or after 1 second once he stops running. This not only allows you to see survivors highlighted by Killer Instinct, but it also allows you to perform a second dash. The second dash is completely identical to the first in range and speed, and this is where the chase command shows its potential. In this mock-up on the screen, there is a survivor hiding behind this tile, and as a Deathslinger, I would never be capable of landing a shot without moving to another spot, but at that point the survivor would match my movement. Houndmaster does not suffer the same issue, as she can set up Snug here, or there, or even all the way over there. And because of the second dash, she has the potential to fetch a grab that Deathslinger would normally find impossible. Now I know what many of you are thinking. Hero, the survivor is not going to be standing still. They will obviously move further away from the dog once you send them out. There is no way that you will get the bite in a normal match. To that, allow me to introduce to you the first of many techs that Houndmaster has with Snug, that being the hug tech. Or Snug tech if you want to be cute. Due to Snug's tight hitbox, he can slide off of certain tiles much easier compared to other dash-focused abilities, and more importantly, it allows you to get bites on survivors that you normally would never do when aiming in a straight line. Take this clip of me on Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria as a great example of the Snug tech, as I position Snug to fire around the car loop and into the main building side entrance. As he runs through, Snug fetches the grab on Sable and I get the down, because Sable wasn't expecting Snug to run in such a weird fashion. The way to pull off the hug tech on Snug is fairly easy in practice too, as when you aim down with the chase command, you will see a set of footprints. These are an indicator to show you where Snug will run, and when he collides into a wall, he will slide depending on the angle you take. The further you aim towards a particular direction, the wider he will run past the corner of the wall. As you play Houndmaster more and more though, you will begin to use the indicator less and less. And that is because of muscle memory, but more importantly, it's to help you reduce the reaction time for a survivor. Although you have 5 seconds to fire the second shot upon swapping to Snug, you can fire it almost immediately once you swap, meaning that although survivors hear you swapping to Snug and see his eyes glow orange, they won't have enough time to react. In fact, Houndmaster can fire her first dash before she even finishes the chase command animation, leaving her whistle as the only form of notification that she is about to send out the dog. As a result, compared to Deathslinger, you can get some really cheeky hits in ways that he would normally find impossible. Another difference is in the sorts of actions you can do once Snug grabs onto a player, or more specifically, what actions Deathslinger cannot normally do. You see, when Deathslinger lands a shot with his Redeemer, he is locked into the pull animation with the survivor, and he can only exit it from the chain breaking, or from him using a basic attack. Houndmaster is not locked into an animation once Snug grabs onto a player, allowing her the freedom to do anything she needs to at that moment. She can destroy pallets, vault windows, kick generators, damage other survivors, eat a bowl of chum. The world is her oyster. Another lovely detail is how this interaction works with some perks, but we will save that for a little later. She has around 8 seconds before Snug will let go of the grab survivor, but another thing to note is that Snug does not just let the survivor go scot-free. Whenever Snug lets go of a survivor in any way, unless they were damaged by Houndmaster, he leaves them inflicted with a 10% hinder for 5 seconds. This means that you still have an extra shot at landing a hit with Houndmaster, but there is another element that this hinder supports, and that is double taps. The cooldown for the chase command is 3 seconds, but the catch is that the cooldown will only start once Snug returns to Houndmaster's side. As a result, the cooldown could be much longer if Snug went for a long distance grab and gets stunned, or it instantly starts when you hit a player grabbed by Snug, which is why Houndmaster players enjoy utilizing the double tap combo. The idea here is that once Snug grabs onto a player, the Houndmaster will walk right up to Snug and wait until he lets go. Once the survivor is free, the Houndmaster player will injure the survivor, and even with their haste boost from being injured, the hinder will continue. And because Snug is already next to Houndmaster once he lets go, the cooldown is ready for the second grab. This is a very common tactic that you will find Houndmaster mains utilizing, as it allows them to secure fairly easy downs while reducing the potential for the survivor to dodge Snug even more because they are slower. That being said, you cannot always utilize the double tap combo, as you would be wasting a good chunk of time trying to do so. As such, this is more so a niche option that exists, and one that you should utilize when the game state is in a stable spot, and you aren't working against the clock. Now, in the instance where you are simply facing an absolute god of solo queue, there is one last tech that the chase command has, and I often use it because of how cheeky it can be to execute. Behavior, fearing Snug would somehow fly off the map with a survivor by biting them mid-vault, added in a preventative measure to instead deal damage to a survivor when they are locked into an animation, specifically vaulting from pallets and windows. I call this the bite tech, and it is surprisingly easy to execute once you get the hang of the chase command setup timer. You aim at the survivor who is about to vault and send Snug forward, and he will bite and damage them. If you mess up on the timing, not to worry, as you now use the second dash to get the survivor, as they will now be in close proximity for you to land the grab. This can also help if they fake out the vault, as you can quickly activate the second dash to prevent Snug from vaulting, but you will need to be fast, as Snug will want to vault that window like there is no tomorrow. Is the bite tech cheap to face on the survivor end?
Perhaps.
But is it fun to utilize on the killer end? Of course! Why else would I be smiling about such an interaction? Moving on from Chase, Houndmaster's second command is called the Search command, and compared to Chase it has a few extra bells and whistles, but it is still fairly easy to grasp. While in the Search command, you are capable of placing a marker on the map for Snug to run towards and protect for 3 seconds. The range of the marker is set at 40 meters maximum, but if you place the marker over a generator, hex totem, or exit gate, then the range limit is bypassed. Upon confirming the marker, Snug will run towards the location with a bright orange ring emanating around him, along with him leaving behind a trail that you can follow to gain a haste bonus while within its range. The further that Snug travels, the larger the detection ring will grow around him, and once any survivor is detected by Snug, either by him traveling to the marker, or upon Snug returning to you, which places the power on a 1-second cooldown, they are inflicted with Killer Instinct for a short time, and a unique effect called Hound Sense. Survivors who are inflicted with Hound Sense have it for 45 seconds, and while inflicted by it, they will suffer different effects depending on their health state. If they are healthy, the next time they are injured by Houndmaster's basic attack, they will be placed into deep wounds, but if injured, they will instead have louder grunts of pain and a longer duration for their pools of blood in the dying state. Just like the Chase command, the idea of the Search command sounds rather simple. You place the marker on generators, Snug finds you targets to start fresh chases, and you get to move to a new location fairly quickly. It all sounds fine and dandy. But much like the Chase command, there is a hidden complexity within the simple nature of the Search command, because if you try to play only like this with the Search command, then you will be missing out on a lot of value it can provide. Going back into specifics, whenever Snug is sent out with the search command, a lullaby effect of 32 meters plays around him, alerting survivors that Snug is on the move, and most likely, Houndmaster is too. This is a form of counterbalance from behavior, specifically when running undetectable builds or running from a far distance, because if you think Houndmaster's chase power is flexible because of the chase command, then you need to see what the search command can do. When I said that you gain a haste bonus when running along the search path, I did not mean something like a measly 5%. You are going from 115 move speed to 150 in a second. That is Cloaked Wraith move speed, guys, gals, and other pals, and you can abuse the living daylights out of that move speed. This is why behavior gave Snug a lullaby effect, as Houndmaster can get away with some obscene map control tactics that other killers can only dream of. Outside of simply using the search command to keep watch over generators, like a certain someone from long ago, you can also utilize that haste bonus to close the distance on survivors, and this clip of me chasing Shane Wigwas is a perfect example of this. I just injured him, and he is running into the Temple of Purgation main building. I know there is no pallet in the general area, so he is most likely going to go for a window. As a result, I place the marker where windows usually spawn, and with the bonus haste, I get the down on Shane right as he vaults. The killer instinct also helps me out too, because I have near perfect tracking on where he is going, letting me know to keep on the trail and maintain the haste bonus. That being said, if we rewind this clip by a couple of seconds, you will also notice another tech that is a part of the search command, which allowed me to get the injury on him in the first place. And I like to call this the Trailblazer tech. You see, lunge attacks in Dead by Daylight are calculated in a rather funny way, because instead of it being a fixed distance, it instead is calculated depending on how fast you are. The game sets your move speed starting the lunge attack to 6.9 meters a second, but it also increases depending on the amount of extra haste you are carrying during that time. This is why killers like Wraith and Spirit can get some really funky hits upon exiting their power. It is because they are carrying the momentum from their power with the lunge attack, and Houndmaster is the exact same. Now don't get me wrong, the lunge attack is not the same level as something like coup de grace, but it can absolutely make the difference between you getting a hit or getting smacked with a plank of wood. The way that you use the Trailblazer tech is rather simple on paper too. When you are in a tile that Snug's chase command would be impossible to use, usually a circular tile, you place Snug on one side of the tile with the marker. Once the survivor is far enough away from the pallet, you follow the trail and gain the extra momentum, and then go for the lunge attack. It is important to note that you only gain haste from running towards the marker, not away from it, so you want to be careful when it comes to how you move within the tile. It is also very important to note that I don't utilize the Trailblazer tech very often, and that is because it has its faults. As survivors can see the orange detection ring around Snug once he starts running, they will know that you are trying to go for an extended lunge. As a result, against higher MMR survivors, they will play the loop more cautiously. In truth, the only times I ever use the Trailblazer tech is when the tile is too circular for Snug's chase command to properly secure a grab, and the tile is long enough that I can utilize the extra haste to secure the hit with the enhanced lunge attack. Truthfully, it's a very flaky tech to properly execute, but when it works, it is absolutely fantastic. Now that we better understand how Houndmaster works, let's talk about playstyles, because this is where things go from interesting to truly fascinating. Back in my previous video, where I talked about Houndmaster's visual design and history, I mentioned that she was one of my favorite killers within the game. That being said, although I went into immense detail about why her lore and visual design intrigued me, and how it made her special to Dead by Daylight, I did not mention much when it came to gameplay, and that is because I was saving it for this video. To best explain why Houndmaster is such a fascinating killer gameplay-wise, we need to talk about behavior's usual philosophy when it comes to handling killer playstyles. Typically, whenever behavior design a killer, they have a specific gameplay flow that they want players to follow. However, they always allow players to have wiggle room in how to play as them through the form of perks and add-ons. As you may notice, however, there are some killers that are more restricted compared to others, and this is usually due to balance or the design of the killer's power. Take Pyramid Head as a great example, as he is a fairly strong killer, but you will notice his build diversity is fairly low, and that is because his power is designed around utilizing special attacks and the Cage of Atonement. As a result, he fetches far less value from perks designed for basic attacks or hooking players, and so players tend to avoid utilizing those perks. A similar logic can be found on a killer like Pig, where her power promotes more flexibility compared to Pyramid Head, but due to her weaker chase potential, she needs to run certain perks to resolve those problems, thus reducing her flexibility when it comes to build paths. This is what makes Houndmaster so unique to many other killers, because she finds herself in the perfect sweet spot for build diversity. She has the tools in her kit to utilize a variety of different perk types, but also the strength to not be forced into using specific perks. And considering that I have a whole series dedicated to talking about perks, you should expect I will love a flexible killer like this one. What makes the whole situation even better is the fact that her add-on design too promotes this idea of flexibility. To best show this off, I am going to be discussing each of her add-ons and revealing particular built-in playstyles that they promote. Starting off with the Browns, we have Creature's Bone, a fantastic series of graphic novels revolving around a group of silly creatures that... Wait a minute, wrong picture. There we go. Which reduces the stun duration of Snug by 50%. Although not that glamorous sounding, especially as it is just enduring buff for the dog, it does serve a purpose, specifically in higher MMR lobbies where survivors know how to face Houndmaster. One common tactic you will see veteran survivors doing against Houndmaster, especially when she is about to start the chase command, is that they will camp the pallet and wait to get grabbed. The reason why they do this is so they can immediately get the stun, placing Houndmaster's power on cooldown and having a safe passage to run to the next tile. What makes the situation far worse is the fact that your power does not start the cooldown until after Snug recovers, increasing your 3-second cooldown into a 6-second one. This add-on helps to reduce that timer down to 4.5 seconds, but more importantly, it helps to punish survivors by reducing the value they would normally fetch, especially when combined with this particular shutdown build. Brutal Strength removes pallets sooner, making the value from stunning Snug even less potent. But it is the rest of the perks that makes this build far more deadly. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that you could do anything you wanted while Snug was holding a survivor, and this build utilizes that element to the fullest. Bamboozle helps to block vaults off for survivors, restricting potential options to get to safety. Eruption helps to set the generator up for detonation, and the perk that makes Eruption even more deadly is the new perk releasing with the Judgment, Lay Waste. This perk increases the amount of progress that is regressed on a generator by 2% per charge, meaning it is a very powerful tool for regressing large progress generators. In conjunction with Eruption, all the poor survivor can do is sit and watch their poor generator regress from 90% to 0, all the while Portia is giving them a devious smile. I suspect that this will be a very popular build for Houndmaster in higher MMRs, but I absolutely know I will be enjoying utilizing this build when I need to sweat. The next add-on is Sticky Pitch, and just like Creature's Bone, this one seems plain at first, but as you look closer into its value, it ends up being quite nice. This add-on increases your search command move speed along the trail path by an additional 2%, and this works wonders with the Trailblazer tech and for cutting survivors off with the search command. Additionally, that extra speed ends up also supporting more control builds with Houndmaster, as she can get to where she needs to be much sooner, and unlocking the chest merchant within you. I will admit that you do not need Sticky Pitch, as you are already fast enough with being 150% from running along the search path, but I will never stop an adrenaline junkie, as that will result in me being a crash test dummy for them. In any case, here is a control build focused on slowing generators, but also using Ultimate Weapon to give you a good spot to set your marker down. The third brown add-on is Trainer's Book, and its effect is to increase the Hound Sense duration by 35%. One thing you may notice about Houndmaster's add-ons is that there always tends to be one strange option within all the rarities, and by strange, I normally mean bad. Trainer's Book is unfortunately not that great, as it only increases the Hound Sense timer to 60 seconds, but it does have a use, specifically for Fatty Meat. Although we are looking over the brown add-ons, I believe discussing Fatty Meat here is very important, else there would be nothing else to talk about Trainer's Book. Fatty Meat is a blue add-on that makes survivors afflicted with Hound Sense scream every 15 seconds, but it does not reveal their locations to Houndmaster. Although this add-on is not great from an intel gathering standpoint, you can pull off some really mean builds because of that scream. Impossible skill check becomes somewhat plausible with Merciless Storm. Deadman Switch has always paired well with interruptions like Fatty Meat, but the most common build seen with Fatty Meat is Shaman builds. Combined with Hex Thrill of the Hunt, you can constantly interrupt survivors from breaking your totems, and with Trainer's Book giving you an extra scream for Fatty Meat, it helps to reduce the need for resetting Hound Sense every so often. This clip shows off just how beneficial the build can be, as I marked Chris and he is getting interrupted when trying to cleanse, and when Hound Sense finally ends, I just reset it to make him suffer longer. It is important to note that these two add-ons require a very different playstyle from you as a Houndmaster player, as these builds need the search command to be utilized more for macro play rather than for map traversal. As such, if you do not have the macro gameplay sense of a god, you will absolutely find Fatty Meat falling apart very easily. But when you do pull the build off, you can make these two add-ons look like a proper 5-star meal. Is anyone else hungry right now? In any case, I have two builds for these add-ons, with the first being a gem blocker build using Merciless Storm and Deadman Switch with further support, and a generic Shaman build that even a Jason player can execute when their two brain cells get tired from aiming the spear. Finishing up the brown add-ons, we have a guilty pleasure for many Houndmaster players, and that is the Young Coconut, which increases Snug's chase command speed by 5%. Simply put, this allows Snug to get the grab much sooner, which can make the difference between you landing a hit or having Snug eat a full course meal at Home Depot. As a result, it has become a fairly popular add-on choice for many Houndmaster players, but there are other options that provide more utility over raw strength. Regardless, the add-on is currently bugged, making its increased speed non-existent, so don't bother touching it with a 10-foot pole until behavior finally fix it in the blessed year of 2077. When it does finally work, however, here is an item denial build that I enjoy utilizing. The idea behind this build is to use Snug to pull survivors to favorable spots for Franklin's demise to drop, and to set up Weave Attunement and spots to support Snug's chase command. Additionally, we have Hoarder and Human Greed here, because I only use the strongest of the perks for my builds. Moving into the greens, I want to talk about two at the same time, as these are the two add-ons that I typically run on Houndmaster, and for very good reason. The first is Smoked Snapper, which reduces Houndmaster's power cooldown by 5%, and Barley Meal, which increases the distance of Snug's first dash by 20%. Smoke Snapper might seem like an odd choice, especially considering Houndmaster's cooldowns are already short for both Chase and Search, but the major reason I utilize the add-on is for double tap plays. As your cooldown is being reduced by 0.15 seconds for the Chase command, you are getting a little extra time to work with the Hinder, and more importantly, extra time for Snug to fire away and catch the slower target. I know for many 0.15 seconds does not sound all that great, but in a game like Dead by Daylight, that extra time is a make or break moment for you to secure the down, or for you to lose the survivor. Additionally, it just helps Houndmaster feel even smoother to play, especially in the moments when Snug decides to go sightseeing. Oh, but at least he brings back postcards. Ew. Let's throw that one away, no one will be upset about that. Getting back on track, Barley Meal is quite possibly Houndmaster's best add-on. The reason why this is the case is purely due to how Houndmaster wishes to use her chase command, as you typically use the first dash to get closer to survivors, and then the second dash to secure the grab, similar in logic to Nurse with her blink attack. As such, having an add-on that allows Snug to get even closer to players, especially against survivors with haste perks, it ends up being an absolute blessing. Although there is the risk of placing Snug further away, and so increasing the time before your cooldowns start, it is a risk worth taking, as the value is simply way too good for Barley Meal. Here is a double tap build that I enjoy utilizing for Houndmaster with Smoke Snapper, and a comfort build of mine for Barley Meal where I go max Scourge Hooks. The next green add-on is the Spyglass, which allows you to see survivors' auras for 3 seconds once Hound Sense ends. Realistically, not a good add-on, but I do see the vision that behavior we're trying to do here. Hit and Run as a playstyle has existed ever since the game released, and Behavior have played with the idea of supporting the strategy for other killers. Spyglass is one of many experiments like this, as you want to injure a survivor and mark them with Hound Sense, and then proceed to leave them alone until you find an opportunity to down them. In conjunction with another add-on, this playstyle can work, but it is realistically very flaky to execute, as you have the tools to get quick downs, and you do not need to go for hit and run tactics. Regardless, here is a build with Hysteria and Deathbound that I enjoy utilizing for hit and run tactics, as it forces survivors to heal, even when they wouldn't want to, and it combines well with Spyglass's strategy. Moving on, we have Belaying Pins, which causes survivors to be affected by Oblivious for 20 seconds once marked with Hound Sense. Once again, an add-on that doesn't do well by itself, but it has some good support tools with Houndmaster's other add-ons, specifically with Marlin Spike. Similar to Fatty Meat, Marlin Spike is an add-on that makes Belaying Pins go from a somewhat okay add-on to a fairly good one, and that is because of how it works. Marlin Spike is a purple add-on that makes it so whenever a survivor is grabbed by Snug, all other survivors within 20 meters of that player are tagged with Hound Sense. What makes Marlin Spike so interesting is the amount of utility it provides to you as a Houndmaster, as you can now inflict Hound Sense onto multiple targets without having to swap to the search command. One detail that I think many overlook when it comes to Hound Sense is its ability to reduce stealth play for survivors, as survivors marked by Hound Sense are highlighted in bright red. As a result, they stick out much easier on every map, making going for blinds, pallet rescues, or general stealth play much more tricky. Take this clip as an example of Marlin Spike's power. I get the grab on Claudette, and because of Marlin Spike, the V on the nearby generator is tagged. Although the generator has progress, I did not see her until she was highlighted, allowing me to slug Claudette and go for the chase on V. This clip also shows off the intel gathering element of Marlin Spike, as when I get the second grab on V, both Ace and Tori are tagged by Marlin Spike, letting me know they are within the general area. I end up damaging Tori during this time as well, and because she was marked with Hound Sense, she is now inflicted with deep wounds, which will waste even more time for her as I go after another player. All of this value from Marlin Spike doing the bare minimum. And what is even funnier is the fact that it becomes even better when combined with the other Hound Sense add-ons. Returning to Belaying Pins, because players are now tagged from a survivor getting grabbed, it makes the ability for Belaying Pins to pop even more consistent. Additionally, because of the duration of Oblivious, you have the potential to locate the survivors and get some really cheeky downs, especially as Houndmaster will know the player is within the general vicinity. I enjoy pairing this add-on with an intel denial build, where I use Belaying Pins to help me fetch some stealth plays early on before I can get the Hex Plaything totem set up. As for why Hex Penamento and Hex the Third Seal are here, it's to provide some slowdown, provide a potential slug play, and most importantly, to give even more chances for Secret Project to pop, as it does detonate from Penamento totems, which is pretty neat. As for Marlin Spike specifically, I have a snowball build for it to punish survivors who group up, allowing me to go for multiple downs. Heading back to the final green add-on, we have the Knotted Rope, which reduces Houndmaster's basic attack cooldown by 2% upon damaging a survivor grabbed by Snug. I talked about its history within my previous Houndmaster video, but nowadays it is awaiting a rework that continues to have no proper date in sight. As of right now, it is simply a really bad add-on, so I don't recommend running it unless you are looking to speedrun basic attack cooldowns. Then I recommend the build on the screen. In that case, go crazy, go stupid, as the hip kids say. Entering the blue add-ons, we have a very weird choice for Houndmaster, and that is Water Skin, which increases the second chase command dash distance by 20%. Similar to Barley Meal, Water Skin sits at the top of Houndmaster's add-on list. Specifically at the top of F tier, as this thing is her worst add-on. As I stated with Barley Meal, the logic that goes into using Houndmaster's chase command is to use the first dash to make distance, and to use the second dash to secure the grab. As such, Barley Meal fulfills both of the dash's goals, as the first one gets Snug close enough to the survivor that it will potentially land. In the moments it doesn't connect, Snug is now close enough that the second dash will be a confirmed grab. In comparison, Water Skin feels pointless, as you don't need the extra range when the dog is literally sitting on their head for the second dash. Additionally, the issue that barley meal has with displacing the dog becomes even more dramatic for Waterskin, as when you do try to use Snug to go for a long-range snipe, you place him even further away from you, making your cooldown start much later. Even if you do land a long-distance grab on a survivor, you are miles away from the target, and they will most likely find some means of removing Snug from them. I absolutely do not recommend running this add-on, but if you do wish to consider it, I have a sniper build set up for you to utilize, which can be experimented with as much as you like. Returning us to a semblance of good add-on design, however, we have Spiked Collar, which causes survivors who are grabbed by Snug to suffer hemorrhage and mangled for 60 seconds upon being injured. There really isn't much else to say except that this add-on is Sloppy Butcher, but with an extra step, and for Houndmaster, this is very good. Being injured against a Houndmaster is a deadly situation for survivors, as the moment they get grabbed by the dog and there is no pallet, there is no escaping death. What makes this add-on even better is the amount of time Houndmaster wastes for survivors with healing. Due to Hound Sense placing healthy survivors into deep wounds from being injured, not only do they need to remove the mend bar, but now they have to deal with a slower heal, and with this anti-healing build it will become much harder. Overall, a lovely add-on, and one of very few status effect add-ons that Behavior has made that doesn't need you to fold yourself like a pretzel to work. Isn't that right, Yoichi's fishing net?
I'm doing the best I can!
The next blue add-on is Training Bell, which makes it so whenever Snug is stunned, the responsible survivor's aura is revealed for 8 seconds. Realistically, this add-on won't detonate in the average trial very often, but against survivors who are very stun-heavy with Snug, you will find immense delight from that information, especially when going for grabs. Killer Instinct is great information, but nothing will beat the pixel-perfect nature of aura reading, which is why I like pairing Training Bell with the infamous combo of Enduring and Spirit Fury. Many players enjoy trying to stun both you and Snug together, so why not punish their hubris with a little bit of hubris? The final blue add-on is Unfinished Map, which causes all survivors affected by Hound Sense to suffer the exhausted status effect for 15 seconds. There really isn't much else to say here, as it is a status effect add-on, but the value it provides is very good. Being able to shut down one of the most powerful perk types on the survivor side is very useful, and through using tools like cutting players off with the search command, the Trailblazer tech, and Marlon Spike's existence, it gets even better. I enjoy pairing this up with a haste build, and I like to pair it with either Coup de Grace or All Shaking Thunder, as having the extended lunge in conjunction with the Trailblazer tech is just even funnier to me. Moving into the purples, we have the Gunpowder Tin, which causes your breaking speed to increase by 30% for 20 seconds once any survivor is afflicted with Hound Sense. Another add-on that is supported by Marlon Spike, and one that has become fairly popular from Behavior's design team. Demolition builds has slowly built themselves up to be a fan favorite for many players, and I cannot really blame them as it is a very enjoyable build that feels smooth to play around with. That being said, Gunpowder Tin is a tad bit flaky, but in conjunction with the Trailblazer tech, using the search command to cut players off, and Marlon Spike in general, the add-on's ability to detonate becomes much more crisp. I like pairing this add-on with a demolition build, allowing me to break pallets and vault windows at incredible speeds, and luckily this is one of few builds that wasn't impacted too badly by diminished returns, so go and have fun. The next purple is Leather Harness, which increases Snug's chase command's run speed by 20% once a generator is completed for 30 seconds, and permanently increasing that duration once the final generator is powered. Much like Young Coconut, this add-on is currently bugged and doesn't work right now, so it's best to avoid it. But even when it did work, this thing did not see all that much play. I often call Leather Harness a monkey's paw add-on, because although you are getting a much faster Snug in specific situations, it has the potential to really mess up your muscle memory. Young Coconut does not suffer the same issue, as the move speed increase is minor and it persists for the whole trial. Meanwhile, Leather Harness activates at infrequent moments, and when it is fully available, the game is almost done. Regardless, if you can get away with utilizing the faster speed, this add-on can do some real good damage, especially as survivors don't usually expect Snug to speed up like a Formula 1 car. This is an endgame build that I enjoy utilizing on Houndmaster, but until the bugs for Young Coconut and Leather Harness are resolved, don't run them just yet. The last of the purple add-ons is Ship Figurehead, which causes Houndmaster's terror radius to increase by 8 meters when Snug is following you, and to reduce by 8 meters when Snug is away from you. Terror radius manipulation has always been an interesting gimmick playstyle to utilize, as it makes trying to read where the killer is much more tricky. It is why Monitor and Abuse is such a popular perk for Hag, as it makes it harder to locate her, and more importantly, her web of traps. Houndmaster shares a similar logic, as survivors expect Portia to be with Snug once utilizing the search command, but in conjunction with these perks, it makes trying to locate her much more difficult. Additionally, the Ship Figurehead pairs nicely with the Sniper build with Water Skin, as you now lose 8 meters on the terror radius anytime Snug is away from you, not just from the search command. Moving into the Iridescent add-ons, we have the Iridescent Wheel Handle, which makes Snug linger at the search command marker for 20% longer, but whenever Houndmaster is not on the search path, she gains Undetectable, with it ending once Snug returns, or when she runs along the search path. This is one of my favorite add-ons within the entire game, because you can do a lot of mischievous things with it. You can play with undetectable builds, like with Unforeseen and Dark Devotion, to trick survivors on where you are. Or you can have Snug patrol an area while you sneak somewhere else you know players will be hiding. Or, even more devious, you run Starstruck. Back in the days of Yonder, I made a meme video showing off a particular build for Skull Merchant that I called Shotgun Merchant, and this iteration of that build works quite nicely with Houndmaster as well. Starstruck activates once you pick up a survivor, causing everyone within your terror radius to be exposed. Once they exit your terror radius, or once Starstruck deactivates from hooking or dropping the carried survivor, exposed remains on them for 30 seconds. Starstruck goes on a 60-second cooldown once you hook or drop the carried survivor. The one detail about Starstruck that many forget is that it remains active as long as you are carrying that survivor, and as a result, if your terror radius changed during that time, Starstruck would follow suit. What you do is send Snug away for a little while, pick the player up, and once Snug returns and a player is trying to be altruistic, they end up with a nasty surprise. I call this Cannonball Master, because the impact you can have with Starstruck is immense on her. Funnily enough, Houndmaster uses Starstruck even better than Skull Merchant, as she can pin players down with the chase command and cut them off with the search command, or even use the many techs in her treasure chest to weaponize the perk. Long story short, this is a very explosive build, and one that I truly appreciate purely for how fun it can be to run. This is my typical build for Cannonball Master, but I will admit that you can get some really cheeky downs from long distances when using Barbecue and Chili, in conjunction with Ship Figurehead and Distressing to increase your terror radius size even further. The final add-on Houndmaster has is the Torn Novel, which allows you to see the auras of survivors 10 meters close to Snug when you swap to Snug's point of view. This effect lingers for 2 seconds once you end the second dash, either from launching Snug's second dash or simply cancelling out. There is a famous term in card games that has slowly been adopted within Dead by Daylight, and that would be the term training wheels. The concept comes from the idea of a card that completely holds the hand of a particular deck's archetype, allowing the setup and reward to be so easy that the player doesn't even need to think, and that is the case with Torn Novel. As I said with Training Bell, Killer Instinct is nice information, but nothing will beat the precise nature of aura reading, and this add-on brings that logic to the forefront. Being able to see where survivors are allows for more consistent grabs, more precise Snug tech shots, and more importantly, information after Snug misses or you cancel out. With you gaining an extra timer to the aura read from leaving Snug's point of view, you gain the ability to know the survivor's plan of action afterwards, allowing you to more accurately cut off their movement, utilize the Trailblazer tech more consistently, and in general know what to do next. This add-on is considered Houndmaster's strongest, and I fully agree, as this thing takes out a lot of guesswork that you normally need to do when using her. But even still, I cannot help but hate it. Although this is a wonderful add-on for helping new players, and allowing average Houndmaster players to get a taste of what they could be, it removes a lot of the experience that you gain from playing the killer without it. Houndmaster is a difficult killer, but once you figure out the ebb and flow of her kit, you are golden. Having an add-on take that process and just speedrunning it for you feels tasteless to me, and it is why so many recent killers annoy me with a burning passion, because they feel so robotic that even a worm can pilot them flawlessly. That being said, even with my own biases, I cannot disagree with others that this add-on is strong. This is an aura reading build that I typically run for Houndmaster, and with Lethal Pursuer in the mix, it will make Torn Novel become even stronger. In the end, for Houndmaster's add-ons, they are very good. With the exception to Water Skin and Knotted Rope, every one of Houndmaster's add-ons feel like a piece to a particular puzzle. Some of them tackle similar strategies, meanwhile others look towards promoting unorthodox ideas. But one thing that we can agree on is the fact that it allows for some of the most diverse builds for a killer we have ever seen. There are very few killers who can pride themselves for that fact, and in my opinion, Houndmaster is the queen of build diversity and playstyle flexibility. To finish up the Houndmaster guide, I wanted to go over some additional tips that I believe to be fairly important, but I did not have the right ways to segment them with the other details about her kit. Firstly, you can utilize the chase command for a more direct form of intel gathering compared to the search command. This is because when you swap to Snug, you see all survivors within 10 meters or so with killer instinct, and that information goes through lockers too. As such, if you believe a player is hiding in a locker or stealthing nearby for a rescue, using the search command for quick intel gathering does wonders. The same thing goes for using the search command with lockers, but you do want to be careful when using it too close, else the search command won't read them. Secondly, Snug's grab has some interesting interactions when it comes to exit gates and survivors inflicted with endurance. Whenever a survivor is grabbed and they have endurance, Snug will let them go within 2 seconds rather than 8, and not inflict hinder, as this is behavior's way of preventing tunnel out plays on Houndmaster. That being said, if you put them in deep wounds, then that clause does not happen, but let's pretend you didn't hear that from me. As for exit gates, survivors grabbed by Snug cannot leave, and after he lets go, the exit gate effect lingers for 1.5 seconds, which can be quite useful when running perks like Save the Best for Last. Thirdly, Snug will get stuck on elevations when you use the chase command, specifically when trying to drop from a height. I don't know why this happens, but Snug just gets stuck on the ledge and refuses to move. Perhaps he has a fear of heights when alone. You will also want to be careful when trying to shoot with Snug near windows, as if you are too close to the wall, he will want to vault that window much more than wanting to go straight forward, which can be a real chore in some situations. Fourthly, the trail made by the search command is not made by Snug himself. Instead, it is made immediately once you set up the marker, meaning that on maps where Snug can get stuck on certain terrain, you can outrun him to the marker, which is really nice, especially in the moments where Snug gets stuck on a random pebble. Fifthly, and most importantly, you can pet the dog. To do so, you need to stand in an open area and have Snug standing right in front of you. Prepare the chase command and cancel the effect, and then you will find a prompt. Press the button and enjoy seeing the goodest boy finally get the pets he so rightfully deserves. The final tip I have for you all is not so much a mechanical detail, instead it's one for your mental state when playing Houndmaster, and that is you need to be very patient when playing as her, as she is a very complex killer to master. There will be annoying moments where behavior break her with bugs, moments where you miss a flick shot with Snug, or moments where the game simply decided to be against you. Houndmaster has the tools to deal with almost any situation, but you need to know what to use at the right moment, and that all comes from experience. I cannot tell you what tech or playstyle would be best for you, as this is different from person to person, but what I can tell you is that when playing Houndmaster, you should be playing for fun. There are a lot of things that can get thrown your way that could spoil your chances of winning, but when it comes to trying unorthodox strategies, or going for cool shots, or outrunning the survivor sprint burst, or just her saying anything in her sea shanty voice, there's a lot of fun things that you can do with her. That is all I have to say for Houndmaster's power. Although I feel like I've done a great job at showing off all the cool things you can do with her, it still feels like we are in unexplored territory. As many of you know, Houndmaster is infamous for her low play rate, and although she has a good chunk of dedicated mains, much like myself, we are still learning more and more about the character. As such, although you have learned a good chunk of what the killer can do, there is still room for growth, and that is the sort of killer that I love. A character who is difficult to pick up and even harder to master, who can alter their game plan depending on the situation, and who can experiment with different builds either to learn new things or to simply have fun. I hope that you all enjoyed the video and see all the gameplay elements that makes me love Houndmaster so much. I cannot wait to hear what you all have to say in the comments, but for now, I shall be closing off here. Good luck in your trials, everyone. You will need it, especially once Judgment arrives and finally judges Snug as the goodest boy.